ESPN predicts the Bears are going to go heavy after the defensive line this offseason, but also blamed Caleb Williams for the offensive line's poor performance. There's also a rumor circulating about Trey Smith potentially reaching a contract extension in KC. I'm going to quickly talk about all of this. Let's get right into it. First off, an article surfaced detailing every team's offseason predictions and what they should do this offseason. They predicted the Bears will not only go after a pass rusher in free agency, but also draft a defensive lineman in the first round, predicting that we sign pass rusher Josh Sweat from the Eagles and then draft Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolan. Now, that would insanely improve the defensive line, and the Bears would really upgrade their pass rush. So I'm not against this at all, but we'd still need to sign a couple of offensive linemen in free agency, and day two of the draft would still have to be O-line heavy. But there's definitely a scenario that this makes sense here. And Ryan Poles actually said the same thing in his press conference yesterday. And with everyone focusing on the trenches this offseason, most of us have talked a lot more about the offensive line than the D line. That D line still needs some work. And I believe the Bears are not only going to be big spenders during this year's free agency period, but also attack the trenches in the draft as well, doubling down on the investment. I expect at least 5 to 6 new players to be brought into the trenches by the time the draft is over. This year is all about the trenches. I've talked about that all off season long, and you're probably sick of hearing it. But I agree with ESPN that the Bears might surprise some people with how much resources they put into the D line this offseason. However, there was another part of the article that made just no sense to me. It said Caleb Williams' sack issues are more his fault than the offensive line. And it kind of hinted that we don't really need to upgrade the O line, and instead we can just focus on the D line. That's simply not true. While it is true that Caleb did hold the ball too long and took some unnecessary sacks, he also led the entire NFL in sacks avoided too. He avoided 50 plus sacks, something I've already spoken about. And while it wasn't all on our O line, anyone who watched the Bears games this season knows that our front five needs to be better. They simply were awful and inconsistent throughout 2024, and they haven't been good in years. And on top of that, the entire interior of our O line are free agents. So while I'm not entirely against using our biggest resources on the D line, it still has to be stated that our front five on offense is also in need of a major upgrade. I believe we can bring both tackles back. We can roll into 2025 with Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, but 3 new players minimum should be brought in on the interior. And that's even if we were somehow going to bring back Tev or Coleman Shelton. Realistically, we should be rebuilding this line from the inside out and bringing in 5 new offensive linemen this offseason. Not 5 new starters, but 3 new starters, all on the interior. And then also a couple of guys for depth and development as well. And that is what this offseason should be about. But finally, there is a rumor that some random reporter out of Kansas City is saying Trey Smith could be working on a 5 year extension. And look, it's definitely possible, but until something official gets announced, most of what we hear is probably just rumors or speculation. I do believe the Chiefs are going to definitely try to re sign Trey Smith, but whether or not a deal gets done, that's still up in the air. And I remain cautiously optimistic that he hits the open market. But we are quickly approaching NFL's free agent period. The NFL combine interviews remain underway, and the biggest name confirmed to meet with the Bears today was Michael Williams, Georgia's pass rusher. Tomorrow are the workouts for the defensive line and linebackers, and then the rest of the positions the next 3 days. I'm going to have a ton of NFL combine coverage, as well as Bears free agent and draft coverage on the way. Please remember to hit that like button for me, guys. Stay tuned, and until next time, bear down.